Let's now take a look at some of the other stories from around the world. A 500-year-old temple dedicated to Hindu god Hanuman has reopened in Ahmedabad after it was renovated by a man of another faith. Now, Moimen had volunteered to renovate the temple. He refused any financial help and bore the entire cost. Now, Moin's initiative has been lauded by local residents who feel that this is something that will bring the two communities, the Hindus and the Muslims, together, as this is a temple that's been renovated by a Muslim. At least 4 people were injured after a building collapsed in Mumbai on Saturday. The building collapsed because it needed heavy repairing, which did not happen in time. Moreover, restoration work in an adjoining room was in progress, and as the construction workers broke the supporting wall for the renovation purpose, the adjacent building crumbled to pieces. The rescue workers were seen sifting through the debris to find any survivors. The hundreds of people converged in the streets of the Indian Kashmir's Rajouri district for an annual procession in the run-up to the festival of Holi. The procession will be held regularly for the next 6 days till Holi, celebrated at the onset of spring. Holi is in fact symbolic of the triumph of good over evil. Leh, the largest town in India's remote northern region of Ladakh, is building ice towers which act as artificial glaciers to address water shortage in the approaching warmer months. Now, the structures resemble stupas or towers used in Buddhist worship and help resolve farmers' woes. Now, in cold deserts areas like Leh, these structures are formed by running pipes under the frost line or the freezing depth and then pushing water through these pipes into cold air, which causes it to land as ice on the ground. As these towers melt in late spring, the meltwater is collected in tanks and then fed onto planted land using drip irrigation system. Right, let's now take a look at some international news now, where US Special Counsel Robert Mueller has filed a new set of criminal charges against President Donald Trump's former campaign aides Paul Manafort and Rick Gates that include bank and tax fraud. The Manafort and Gates are already facing criminal charges by Mueller's office that include conspiracy to launder money and failure to register as foreign agents for political work that they had done for a pro-Russian Ukrainian political party. Now, they were amongst the first to be charged as a part of Mueller's ongoing investigation into whether the Trump administration, rather the Trump's presidential campaign, had colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 presidential elections. The Trump has so far denied any collusion ever having taken place between his team and the Russians. The Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has criticized statements made earlier this month by US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Now, Tillerson had said that the Venezuelan military could actually play a big role in removing Maduro as Venezuela's president. Venezuela's opposition leaders have long urged the military to take action to force Maduro to follow the constitution. The Maduro has maintained that the United States and the opposition parties are in fact part of an international right-wing conspiracy to oust him and get their hands on the OPEC nations' oil wealth. Now, thousands of people protested against Israel's plans to deport African migrants at a rally in Tel Aviv on Saturday. At the same time, there was a smaller protest numbering in the dozens who rallied for the deportation of the migrants. Now, Israel has handed out notices to 20,000 male African migrants in February, giving them about 2 months to leave the country or risk being thrown in jail. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government is presently offering the migrants about $3,500 and also a plane ticket to what it says is a safe destination in another country in sub-Saharan Africa. The owner of the Trump Hotel in Panama City has filed a suit against 4 members of the staff for usurpation accusing them of refusing him entry to the building. Now, Orestes Fintiklis, who owns the hotel and also the majority of the condo units at the Trump International Hotel and Towers, has filed the suit on the grounds that he has been denied access when attempting to enter the building to dismiss the 4 staff. Now, the United Nations Security Council demanded a 30-day truce across Syria on Saturday. Rescuers in the country's eastern Ghouta region said that bombing would not let up long enough for them to count bodies during one of the bloodiest air assaults of the 7-year war. The council adopted the resolution demanding hostilities cease for about 30 days without delay to allow aid and access and medical evacuations. The warplanes pounded Syria's rebel enclave of Ghouta shortly after the UNSC vote, marking it the 7th day in a row of fierce escalation by Damascus and its allies. The rescuers have said that the bombing would not let up long enough for them to count the bodies. Residents holed up in basements and medical charities decried attacks on a dozen hospitals as the United Nations has pleaded for a truce in Ghouta, the only big rebel bastion near the capital. The Damascus government and Russia and its key allies have said that they are only targeting the terrorists in the region. Italy's League leader Matteo Salvini has addressed thousands of supporters on Saturday in Italy's financial capital Milan, repeating his message of Italy first ahead of Italy's elections. That the League, a party in a right-wing coalition, is tipped to get the most seats at the 4th of March vote. The Matteo Salvini has said that he would rip up European Union treaties that meant that Italy had to import produce from outside the country, saying that he wanted Italy's own produce to get priority. Heavy rainstorms swept across the U.S. southern plains in the Midwest on Saturday, causing more flooding that has already forced hundreds to flee their homes. The National Weather Service has forecast more rain in the Midwest for today. Hundreds of people in the region were evacuated over the last several days as rising waters have reached their homes and nearby roadways, while communities have provided sandbags to homes and business owners and have set up dozens of shelters to house the displaced residents. The Rome's ancient Colosseum was lit in blood red on Saturday evening in solidarity with the persecuted Christians around the world. The event drew hundreds of people despite the rain to the Roman amphitheatre that has become a symbol of the martyrdom of early Christians. The main participants were the husband and daughter of Asia Bibi. Bibi is a Catholic woman who has been living on death row in Pakistan since 2010 when she was condemned for allegedly making derogatory remarks about Islam. The Asia Bibi's case drew international attention after the murder of 2 politicians who had tried to intervene on her behalf. The Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has denied that civilians were targeted by the Turkish military during its operations into Kurd-held Afrin enclave in Syria. Now, in a statement on Friday, the Turkish military has said that a fleet of some about 30 to 40 vehicles of the Syrian Kurdish YPG militia had approached the main town of the northwest Afrin region. Erdogan said that it was not in the Turkish army's blood to kill civilians and that Turkey's military had targeted a convoy that had carried help to terrorists. The demonstrators from vegan and animal activist groups demonstrated against French President Emmanuel Macron during his first visit as president to the country's main agricultural fair in Paris. The French farmers are discontent over producer prices and European Union trade talks in Chinese land purchases. Now, Macron has scrapped his itinerary to engage several of his hecklers in a lengthy and detailed exchange on trade policy, social charges and also food standards in front of television cameras. Albania's Cham community is expelled from Greece after World War II asked Greece to apologize for what they called a genocide against them and permit them to return to the area in northern Greece. The Greece has dismissed the Cham issue as non-existent. Neighbour Albania has started talks on a number of issues, and the talks are intended to reach agreements by the 8th of April to ensure Albania's easy accession negotiations with the European Union. Egyptian archaeologists have discovered an ancient necropolis containing about 40 stone sarcophages, about 1,000 small statues and a necklace charm bearing the hieroglyphic inscription Happy New Year. The site, which is more than 2,000 years old, is expected to take another 5 years to excavate. The Egypt's relics are a draw for foreign visitors, and authorities hope new finds can actually help attract more as a way to help revive tourism hit by the unrest that followed the overthrow of former President Hosni Mubarak in the year 2011. The Standing Committee of the 12th National People's Congress, China's top legislature, has closed its 33rd session on Saturday with important documents adopted. The meeting adopted an amendment to a 2015 decision on pledging allegiance to the Constitution. The documents have adopted also included a motion to add new members to the military's Electoral Commission, as well as other appointments and removals. The Cambodians began to weave into the Guinness World Records by attempting to make the world's longest scarf. Now, the visitors on Saturday took part in the weaving process by adding a few strands of thread into the scarf, or krama, a traditional Cambodian scarf, to help hit the attempt to reach 1,000 meters. Now, the campaign is aimed to raise awareness about the tradition of weaving, the importance of krama, and also motivating the people to be united to break the world record.